Good morning. So today I'm going to talk about this lens. This is a Minolta Rokkor MC f1.4 58mm lens. Now I bought this lens as part of a camera kit back in 1996 or 97. Came with a Minolta SRT 101. This lens and a couple others. This is a really nice lens. Of course, it's manual focus. But this is kind of the grade of lens that potentially pros would use back in the 70s. The gentleman I bought this camera from bought this camera in Japan. When I bought it, he bought it in the early 70s. When I bought it from him, I paid $400 for the lens, or not for the lens, for the camera and 3 lenses and a bunch of filters. I still have the camera. I don't use it anymore. But camera is completely manual, though it did have a built-in light meter. Anyway, you might be surprised that with a manual focus lens, you can capture action. But this is a lens you can do it with. Basically, if you're at any kind of race, use your zone focusing. Stop the lens down so you get a nice wide field of view, and pre-focus your lens on a section of the track or anywhere else that your subjects are going to be passing through. And back then you would generally use for action, you would use a higher speed film, ISO 800 or better. But this lens holds up very well on a digital camera. And let's take it over to the pictures. Although I also did want to say, no fringing. It's tack sharp. And the only thing I did notice, and you'll see that in some of the pictures here, greens tend to be slightly oversaturated, but color renditions are generally good. Anyway, I'll start showing you the pictures now. Okay, here's our first picture. As you can see, it's nice and sharp. The color representations are good. Of course, this is Corbin. And this is a cropped image. This is about cropped to about 16 megapixel image. But it's very nice, and got nice highlights on his face. Here's an even closer crop. This one's cropped to about 6.5, maybe 7 megapixel. And don't worry too much about how many megapixels your images are. Pros used to shoot at 6 megapixels at the beginning of the Pro DSLR era. And they paste them on billboards. And for my purposes, this is fine. Anyway, nice, sharp, in focus, nice, crisp, clean details. Here's Lilu, one of our first pictures of her. And she was moving when I took this picture. And now I have this lens, I believe, wide open when I shot this. So the depth of field is very shallow here. And as you can see, the background is nice and blurred, you know, and of course a little bit of the foreground because of that shallow depth of field. Now I had tried stopping it down a couple of stops. I believe I took this at f2.8. It was actually better wide open, but I was hoping for to get just a little bit sharper image, but she was moving around quite a bit, so still it's a nice picture. You know, and this is probably the best out of it. She was trying to sit still, and her eye is nice in focus, and the hairs here are nice and in focus. A little bit of her face hairs. Okay. Now, previously, I had shot this mostly the same background as the Sears 200 millimeter. This lens at 58 millimeters performed significantly better. This was handheld. This is a solid 250, 300 feet away, and it produces significantly better results than that 200 millimeter lens. Here they are playing, and this is where I was talking about the zone focusing. So on the Fuji X-H1, I used the focus highlights or focus peaking, and basically they were playing and moving around a lot, but the area that they were in stayed fairly consistent. So that worked out just fine. Their faces might be a little blurry, but because they were moving around a lot. But here's an example of what I meant by using your zone focus and a manual focus lens and still capturing action. Another picture of them. Now, this is, all of these have been cropped. This one comes in probably around 15 megapixel. And I did adjust the saturation just a little bit and set levels. You know, but there's no fringing. Everything is nice and sharp. His head might have a little bit of motion blur from him moving around. And then last but not least, and of course his face is slightly blurred, hers is slightly blurred, but it's a great picture. This one's roughly 8 megapixels cropped off of a 24 megapixel sensor, but it's such a great picture. You know, it just, and this is where, you know, personal preferences and the type of picture you're taking. You know, a little bit of blur is okay. The picture is actually fully in focus, as you can tell from the grass in the area. But yeah, the subject matter of your picture matters a lot more than technical perfection. But I just love this picture. Our little puppy, aka Velociraptor, is given as good as she can get. And if you're hearing that squeak in the background, that is her working to destroy a toy. So anyway, that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would appreciate a like, and if you're just visiting, I'd I'd like you to subscribe. So that's all. Have a great day.